Welcome back. This is Module 6 of the Cloud Practitioner, and today we are going to speak about compute services, Amazon EC2, and the Amazon EC2 cost optimization and the container services. Then we will look to the serverless computing and Amazon AWS Lambda and Elastic Beanstalk. In AWS, there is multiple services that we can use for the compute layer, and those services, they varies from having an Amazon EC2 where we have basically a server that we can use to launch any service in the cloud. And we have also the container services like Amazon EC2 and Amazon Elastic Container Services, which are a container-based computing instances. We have also an AWS Lambda, which is a zero administration computer platform, where it enables us to run a code without provisioning and managing servers. You can only pay for the compute time that is consumed, and this cost basically will be way much cheaper than running a server 24 hours, 7 days a week. In the container-based services, including Amazon Elastic Container Service, Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, and Amazon Fargate, which is a serverless cluster management system, and we have also the container registry of Amazon Elastic Container Registry, which can enable us to run multiple workloads on a single operating system, and those containers spin up more quickly than virtual machine, and thus offering a responsiveness and container-based solution to continue to grow in the industry. The first thing we will look at is Amazon EC2. Amazon EC2 is a service to run an elastic compute services. It is the service that provides us with virtual machine to run in the cloud, and it gives us a full administration control over the Windows or a Linux operating system that we choose. Most server operating systems are supported, including Windows and Red Hat and Ubuntu. An operating system that runs on a virtual machine is called a guest operating system, and it is easy to distinguish it from the host operating system because the host operating system is directly installed on the server hardware where we put our virtualization software. With Amazon EC2, you can launch any number of instances of any size into any availability zone in AWS Cloud. And you can control which machine or Amazon machine image that you want to launch in that server. You can control the traffic to and from the instance, where you can add an extra layer of security using security group and access control list. The first time you want to launch an Amazon EC2 instance, you will use an AWS Management Console to launch the instance using the instance wizard. You have to decide 9 key decisions in order to launch the EC2 successfully. And those started from selecting the correct AMI and selecting the correct family that you want to run the EC2 in. So let us look now into how we can launch the EC2 in AWS Cloud. So to launch an EC2 instance, we need to go to the Amazon AWS console, and there in the AWS console, we have to go to the EC2 services. So from the services, we need to select EC2, and then we will click on launch an instance. And the first thing we need to do is to decide which Amazon machine image we have, and we have multiple options. We could use the quick start, which are basically a pre-configured Amazon machines image that is provided by AWS, and we can just select them, and we can have here any operating system of our choice like Windows or Ubuntu or even any other operating system. Now, most importantly to know here that you could also launch an Amazon machine image based on your AMI. So let's say you have an EC2, it is running, it has and contains all software that you need for your application. Then you could go to the Amazon AMI by creating an AMI, and you will be use it to basically launch more machines. The Amazon Marketplace or the AWS Marketplace is the place where you can find a digital catalog of thousands of software solutions that offered by a third party, and normally those are paid software. you could also find in the community AMI, which are created by people around the world, and these can be used and checked by AWS, so you can launch your EC2 based on those images in your own risk. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to go back to the quick start, and I will select the Amazon Linux 2 AMI, which is the first one in the list. So I'm going to select it, and this will take me to the second choice. In the second choice, we have to select the instance type. Now, each instance type can determine the memory, the CPU, the disk space, and the disk type, and the network performance. In AWS, we have 5 categories. We have the general purpose, we have the compute optimized, we have the memory optimized instances, and we have also storage optimized and accelerated computing. Those instance type offer a family generation and sizes. So we have to be careful here in order to know exactly what we are going to launch. For example, if we have the machine, it's called T3, the 3 family has a machine starting from T3 Nano, which is a 2 virtual CPU with ½ GB of memory, all the way to T3 2X large, which is 8 virtual CPUs with 32 GB of memory. Now, it's very important to know that the T family is a general purpose, which means the 3 is the generation number, and T3 large, for example, is the size of the machine. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going just to select another family. Let's say I want to have a compute optimized instance. You can find that there is C5.large from 2 virtual CPU with 4 GB of memory, all the way to C5 24X large, which is a large machine that we can use it for a huge enterprise application. Now, most importantly, for the free tier application, if we just want to do a simple demo here, we can select the T2 family, which is another general purpose, beside all the other family like M3, M5, M4, which are memory optimized. Sometimes you have a machine which is like M5A, which means it's a memory optimized. It's the 5th generation, and also it is a network optimized. And M5D is a disk optimized. You have also machines which are sometimes a disk optimized and a network optimized. So it's depending on your need and your application, you can select the right type. Now, for this demo, I'm going to select the free tier one, which is the T2 Micro. In the third decision, we have to select now the networking settings for where and how we are going to launch this machine. So normally we need to decide in which VPC we have to select, we have to launch this EC2. By default, you are going to face or to have what we call the default VPC in North Virginia or in the region you are logged in. Then we have to enable or to assign public IP. We can also use the subnet setting for the host name if you are not using a host name with a DNS host name as well. Now, the capacity reservation, we can choose the capacity to be determined by or keep it open, or we basically select any target group if we have, or a target by ID if we have a target group already created in AWS. Later on, we are going to study this in more details. But for today, you could also decide the placement group. And the placement group decided how your machine will be placed. And there is 3 options here. Whether you want your machine to be clustered, which means they are going to be in the same availability zone and close to each other. And normally we use this choice if we have a web server speaking with an application server and a database server. Or we want them to be spread, which means each server will be placed in a separate availability zone to avoid any fault or power cutoff in a specific building or in a specific data center. You could also choose partition, and in this case, the group will be partitioned into multi-availability zone in the same region. Now, for the sake of this demo, I will keep this without any placement group. The IAM role, if we are going to assign a specific profile for that EC2, let's say our EC2 needs to read and write to S3, so we are going to pass the role here in this field. We could also change the behavior of the shutdown from being stopped to terminate it. As you know, the life cycle of the machine, when you terminate the machine, this means will be deleted permanently. If you stop the machine, it will be stopped. So you can change the shutdown behavior and you make it all the time stopped instead of terminating the machine for good. You could also enable hibernation, and with hibernation option, this means that you can save the data that is currently in the memory of the virtual machine if there is a stop action or we change the status of the machine from running to stop. You could also enable protection against accidental termination, especially when AWS doing some maintenance. You could prevent that behavior, and you can also enable detailed monitoring. With detailed monitoring, we are going to get instead of 5 minutes metrics about the virtual machine, we can get a 1 minute metrics, and we can save those CloudWatch metrics in S3 for doing more analysis. The tenancy here, the default is to run it in a shared hardware. If you use for data regulation, or if you need for data regulation a dedicated tenancy or a dedicated hardware, you can select whether you want a dedicated instance or a dedicated host. You could also enable elastic interface if you are going to enable elastic accelerator to basically improve the machine performance. If you are running a web server in it and you want basically to speed up and to keep a static elastic IP there. The last thing we want to do is to pass a user data, and this is a script that will be executed once the machine is started. And normally in this script, we're going to install a specific software in the machine, like a demo application or an application that we use, as we are going to see in Lab 3. In the next step, we are going to decide the storage. And the storage, as you know, it is elastic block storage. And we have multiple types of elastic block storage that we are going to discuss in the next lessons. Now, for today, we are going to keep it general purpose. As you notice here, there is a magnetic standard storage. We call this an instance storage. It has very cheap price for temporary data, but it has one single issue. If you stop the machine, all the data in the EC2 instance will be lost. So this means you can't change the type of the EC2 if you choose magnetic storage. You could keep the general purpose at now. You could also add another volume if you need, but at this case, we are not going to add any volume, and we will go to the next step where we add tag. And it's very important to add tag in order to keep monitoring the resources, and we will know why we create this instance at first place. In step 6, we have to configure and to choose the rule that we want to open to control the traffic in and out the EC2 machine. So in this example, I'm going to call my security group a demo security group. And this demo security group, I'm going to enable SSH port, and I could enable HTTP port. There is so many ports depending on your need and your application that you can enable. But just for this demo, just to show you, I'm going to enable the HTTP port at port 80. And this will be open from anywhere. I click on review and launch. The last launch step is going to ask me about creating a key pair. This key pair is going to create a public key and a private key. We are going to download the private key. In this case, it's going to be the key that I'm going to create, which is demo, for example. And I will download the private key into my computer here. And the public key will be installed in the EC2 machine. So every time I'm going to access the machine via SSH, it will compare the private key to the public key. The last step is to click on launch, and this will launch the EC2 instance. So these are all the options that we need to worry about in order to launch an EC2 successfully. Once you click on view, you will find that the instance is going now to change from pending to running, and you can change the status of the instance from running to start, to stop, or to reboot, or hibernate, or terminate. Now remember, terminate in AWS means the machine is going to be deleted completely. So the instance lifecycle, once we launch the instances, go to the pending state, and after the pending state, the EC2 is going to go into the running state. If you want to stop the instance, you can stop it. If you want to reboot it, you can reboot it. And if you want to start it, you can start it again. Now, it is the time for you to do Lab 3. In Lab 3, we are going to do a very simple task. We are going to create and launch a new Amazon EC2. We are going to experience how we monitor the EC2 instance, and we update the security group to access a demo web server, and then we will change the instance type and the elastic block storage volume, and we will see the limits of the EC2, and we test the termination protection. You can refer to the Lab 3 solution in the attached video. Thank you for seeing this video, and see you in the next one.